Om Guru Brahma, Guru Vishnu, Guru Devo Maheshwara, Guru Sakshat Parabrahma, Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Tasmai Shri Guruve Namaha. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunattu Sahaviryam Karvavahe Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma Vishavahe. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Thank you so much. Right, so let's start. What we're going to do today is to have an overall view and a recap of what we have done so far. So let's straight jump in there. Salutations to our teacher, Swami Paramatmananda ji, and Adi Shankaracharya and his lineage, thanks to which we are able to do what we are able to do today. Now, what is the context? What is it that we are doing today? It's just to get a quick overall perspective of how far we have come, and is there a way we can see a holistic preview of where we are today. In this session, we'll just take an overall view. We'll leave you with some questions, and maybe next session, we're going to see how do we practically implement what we have learned so far. So we kind of consolidate our learnings, and then we move to the next level. There are 4 levels, 2 level has been completed so far. So just let me quickly put this. Okay. So Shloka 1 to 7 of Tattvabodha basically talks about sadhana chatushtaya. What does it mean in very simple words? It simply means that what are the qualifications a seeker need to have in order to move on this path of understanding Upanishads. And Swami Paramatmananda ji very beautifully puts it across in 4 Ds, which is discrimination, dispassion, discipline, and desire. Sanskrit terms will be Nitya Anitya Vastu Viveka, that is discrimination. And then Vairagya is dispassion, discipline is Shata Sampatti, and desire, which is Mokshatva. Now, what does this encompass? So just like a quick bird's eye view of what these 4 Ds and all these qualification stands for. So the first qualification is that of a discrimination, right? Where they call Nitya Anitya Vastu Viveka. So sometimes they only use word Viveka, but it is Nitya Anitya Vastu Viveka. So let's understand what they're trying to say to just not make it sound very complicated. It simply means that our ability to understand what is Nitya, what is permanent, and what is Anitya, what is impermanent. It's as simple as that. So we should be able to understand what is permanent and what is impermanent. And that is where a lot of work that has happened is what we see that there are 2 components. One is Atma, another is Anatma. What is impermanent is Anatma. Anatma is what? Anything apart from Atma. Now, anything that is made up of matter, which is either made up of gross matter, subtle matter, or a causal matter, whether it is all the body, mind, emotions that we experience, which is subtle matter, and body, of course, the gross matter, or the world that we experience, which is the gross matter. So all my experiences come under Anatma. But there is an experiencer behind these experiences. And that experiencer is denoted as Atma. And what our scriptures is trying to tell us, that be very clear about the fact that anything which is anatma is never going to be permanent. Your body is not going to be permanent. Your energy levels will not remain permanent. Your emotions will not remain permanent. Happiness will not be permanent. Sadness will not be permanent. Your roles of a mother will not be permanent. Your roles as a daughter will not be permanent. Your relationships will never be permanent. And if your career will not be permanent. Nothing on this world will ever be permanent. Right? So anything that comes under anatma is not going to be permanent. And that is something that we need to really get very clear understanding of. And the challenge, what happens is that we are seeking a permanent happiness out of impermanent thing. So we want to have relationships which are permanent. We want to have a body permanent. We want to have health, which is permanent. We want to have a good mental health, permanent. So we are trying to seek permanence out of things which are impermanent. And then if we are doing so, which shows that we don't have viveka, we don't have understanding. So till the time we don't understand this, so till the time we don't have a discrimination that what is permanent and what is impermanent, will keep on wanting to have permanent happiness out of things which are impermanent, and therefore it will lead to anxiety, it will lead to anxiousness, it will lead to disappointment. As simple as that. And therefore we need to take the focus to something which is more permanent. And what is more permanent? You, the very observer, you, the very Atman, which is also known as Sat Chit Ananda. So that is the first piece which is required, that we need to have intelligence to discriminate between permanent and impermanent. Is this okay? All right. That is the first part, that is discrimination. Then they talk about dispassion, which is also known as vairagya. So what does dispassion mean? Does it mean lack of passion? Does it mean lack of emotions? It does not mean those. And we have done our session one very clearly, where dispassion is my ability to see my information, my emotions, and my belief as a piece of information, which changes over a period of time. And when we start seeing it as a piece of information, rather than getting truly identified with it, there will be a certain level of distance that will get created. That leads to something called a dispassion. Right? So that's another important point that we need to remember. Dispassion is also about having desires. And I think Asha has beautifully explained the level of desires and how we can qualify certain desires. And maybe if we have time, we'll request Asha to talk about it again if she recalls those discussions. So how do we kind of figure out which are the desires which are valid and which are the desires which we can move on from? So those some sort of a prescriptive way, but yes, it's something that we can look at. So that is basically dispassion. Third is mumukshutvam, which is desire. But mumukshutvam for what? Mumukshutvam to basically having an intense desire to proceed on the path to claim your real self. That is what mumukshutvam here means. That I am really interested in identifying who I am, in holding on to my true nature, which is Atma, rather than getting swayed by Anatma. That is where mumukshutvam comes into picture. And the last one, of course, is discipline, which is also known as Shat Sampatti. There are 6 things that they have spoken about, which is Shama, Tama, Upanama, Titiksha, Shraddha, Samadhan. So these are the 6 things that we talk about. Again, what it can look very, when we start looking it from a distance, it sort of feels that, oh my God, there are so many things that we need to do. Well, this is a process, this is a path. Controlling your mind and sense organs is not going to be an easy task. Yes, when we start having certain amount of vairagya, when we have certain amount of dispassion, this will automatically come. Quietude is, or withdrawal is something that we can practice through mindfulness and meditation. Again, that's a process that we have to go through. When it comes to endurance, endurance is something where my ability to manage my emotional and physical pain increases. And how do I increase my endurance? Again, a lot to do with dispassion. And then we are talking about Shraddha. What is Shraddha? Shraddha is nothing but my ability to say thank you every night before we go off to sleep, which is gratitude amplified. So if we have gratitude, if we start practicing gratitude, Shraddha is something which will automatically come within each one of us. And Samadhanam is my ability to focus, concentrate. Yes, that is something that we need to work on. So these are Shat Sampatti that we need to have to sort of improve or kind of speeden up our process of spiritual evolution. So this is sadhana chatushtayam that has been discussed in shloka 1 to shloka 7. All right. Just take a moment here. Tell me, is there any question that you have or you're clear in terms of how they are looking at it? Any questions? This is the shloka 1 to shloka 7. They spoke only about sadhana chatushtayam, these 4 Ds: discrimination, dispassion, desire, and discipline. Yes, Sadhana.
What is that third one below you have written? Focus, immunity from
Obstacles. I mean, it's basically my ability to, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the benefits of self-knowledge. There is something that I'm going to explain. This desire simply right now, mumukshutva means say for example, all of you on Wednesday evening at 7:30 showing up over here simply goes to say that there's an intense amount of desire because everybody has work to do. Everybody has priorities, but you have prioritized this over any other thing that talks about mumukshutva that each one of you have. That is required because if you don't have mumukshutvam or the desire, then you will not necessarily want to put so much of time in this. So that is a very, I mean, to me, that's the most important aspect required for the evolution to happen. Mumukshutvam. Is it okay, Sana? I'm just explaining from a. Yeah. Yes, Sasha.
One point actually where I had a doubt is the difference between Uparama and Sama. So there were a lot of things that I was reading. So there were 3 meanings of Uparama I got, and I thought maybe I can share it here.
Sure.
And so because here in this text it is taken as Swadharma, right? Swadharma Anushthana which is what Tattvabodha talks about. But interestingly, there are 3 meanings of Uparama apparently. So one is maintaining a tranquil mind is Uparama. So the way it is explained is the difference is between Uparama and Sama is curative. So curative means once you have a disturbance, then you try and rectify it. Uparama is preventive. So prevention of disturbance is Uparama. That is one meaning. Then the second meaning is sannyasa ashrama, which is a monastic life itself, is called Uparama. That is the second meaning. And the third one is the Swadharma Anushtana Meva, which is what is discussed in the text here. So, because there is a thin line, and we were trying to understand what is the difference between Sama, which is again mind control, and Uparama, which is again withdrawal. So, how are they two different? But that preventive and curative difference was good because then that kind of clarified the difference. So, one is you take vitamin tablets to ensure that you don't get diseases, and the second one is after the disease comes, then you take medicines to cure your disease. So, that's the fine difference between the two. So, I just thought I'll share
Thank
with
you
the
so
group.
much. It's very nice. Beautiful. And all of you, please keep on jumping in wherever you think we can just quickly add on these nuggets. Very helpful because we are trying to put everything together, right? So you just need to have a good bird's eye view of what we have learned so far. Done? Any questions? Okay, so we have done, we have just quickly looked at shloka 1 to 7. Now, this is not the part of the shloka 1 to 7. This something comes in the end of the session, but it has been brought out much clearly in the beginning of the session. This is
sorry to interrupt, but this thing about faith, can you just go back to that slide? Shraddha, you said it's faith or truth?
All right. So Shraddha basically means there has to be certain amount of faith that we need to have in scriptures, in Upanishads, because when we are talking about certain truth, it cannot be necessarily verified by you firsthand in a very scientific manner. It has to happen through a process called inquiry. And therefore, we need to basically look at what is being told in these texts from a slightly open mind and should sort of have that belief that, yeah, there is something true about it. It's not a blind faith that we have to just close our eyes, but yes, be open to the idea that there is a possibility that what they're saying is true. Right? And this develops as once we become a lot more conscious, a lot more aware of what is happening in our lives.
But that doesn't preclude questioning by the student, right?
One should question. In fact, Tattvabodha has been completely written from a question answers perspective. But somewhere when a teacher answers you, you sort of take it on the face value to start with, and later try and investigate if what has been told is right or wrong. So there is a certain amount of openness that is required, and openness will come with with Shraddha.
Okay, so initially there's faith, and then it's probably reiterated due to experience after that.
Yes, yes, yes. So in science also, Prema, isn't that how it works? There is an hypothesis, right? And you either want to prove the hypothesis or disprove the hypothesis. But there is a certain hypothesis that we start with. Basis my certain intuition or instinct or understanding. Same thing over here.
In one of the texts that I was reading, it says that, it's that unwavering faith, but with the freedom to question.
Right. So that's sort of puts it all together. Is it okay so far? And I personally feel to make it very practical, if you really want to have Shraddha, if you start doing gratitude exercise on a daily basis, you'll see what happens. But yes. So yeah, this is Sadhana Chatushtaya. Session 1, from Shloka 1 to Shloka 7. Anything? Is it all okay? Shall we move ahead? All right. Now, a little bit about what Swami Paramatmananda ji is talking about moksha. Moksha, if you break it, is basically moha shaya. Moha is basically delusion, shaya means removal. And when we try and say that what leads to, say, a moksha, or what are the benefits of reading these texts or reading these Upanishads, they have clearly put the benefits in 5 ways, which is Jignasa Nivritti, Vidyananda Prapti, Karpanya Nivritti, Aghata Nivritti, and Dakshata Prapti. So I'll try and explain it in a most simplified and you have to see it for yourself, whether these are really working in your life or not, whether going through the Upanishad is basically helping you in these things. Right. So this is important for us to clearly evaluate whether the time that we are spending, are we basically benefiting? Are we somewhere progressing on these 5 paths or not? So one is Jignasa Nivritti. What is Jignasa Nivritti? Jignana Nivritti is that the fact that we are intelligence, we want to question things, right? There's always certain questions about everything around us. And that is why humans have progressed. And therefore, there are some larger questions that we also have, larger curiosity questions like, where is God? Who is God? If there is a God, then why do I see so much of problems in this universe? Why do I see, things which are not acceptable? If he's there, if he's all pervading, all powerful, why do I see so much of issues around? So that is one question. Another question is, what is this world? What is the origin of this world? Where did this world come from? What is the reason this world exists? Why I am in this world on the first place? That's another thing. And then about who am I? Am I this body and mind? Is this the only life? Do I exist after this lifetime? What exists after this lifetime? What is the purpose of life? Why I am here? There are a whole lot of questions that keeps on percolating in our mind, continuously keep on throbbing us. And sometimes it becomes very intense to an extent that we are unable to function, right? And this has happened with a lot of spiritual seekers, and that's why they have moved ahead in the path of Gyan. So the first thing what it does is that it tells you what cannot be necessarily told and understood by your own self. So what it does is Jignasa Nivritti, helps you understand yourself. And in a very simple manner, how to put it across, it helps me in self-awareness, to know who I am, to know what universe is, and to understand what God is all about. That is the first thing the Upanishad does for each one of us. Jignasa, nivritti. You have to ask yourself, having read this Upanishad, have you understood a little bit more about yourself, about the universe, or about the God? If the answer is yes, we are actually progressing in the right direction. Second thing, what it does is Vidyananda Prapti. It simply says that it kind of basically helps you understand two things. One, there are various ways of pleasure. So, for example, when you eat food, there is pleasure, right? When you go to a place with your friends and you have a nice time, there is pleasure. When you are in front of a mountain, there is pleasure. When you basically go and appreciate a good art, there is pleasure. So you will see that there are finer and finer pleasures that you experience. In fact, knowledge also gives you a lot of pleasure. Knowing something, understanding something, learning something new will also make you feel very good about yourself, right? And it happens to all of us. So what it does is, it does something called Vidyananda Prapti. There is a certain level of pleasure that you will derive having learned something really new, having learned something very unique. And it basically satiates our intellectual need to know. And that is what it does. It does give us that Vidyananda Prapti. And more importantly, what it also does to us is it introduces us to a real nature, which is Sat Chit Ananda, which is the source of happiness, which is always existing, and which is the cause of everything around us. So the day we understand our true inherent nature, it gives phenomenal amount of happiness, because till the time we are identified with body and mind, the body and mind will always have issues to deal with. But the day I move my identification from body and mind to my inherent self, which is consciousness, which is divine, which is Shuddha, which is Buddha, which is Asangha, Sarvagata, Sarupa, you can give any names that you want. Once you kind of know this, then you know that you are divine. And that also gives you extreme amount of happiness or assurance. So that is what it does. Vidyananda Prapti. Jignasa Nivritti, Vidyananda Prapti. You have to check for yourself. Are you able to slowly disidentify from the body and mind and start identifying with your true intrinsic nature, which is divine? That's the second piece. Third is Karpanya Nivritti. What does it mean is, somewhere you will slowly start understanding, as we spoke about Nitya Anitya Vastu Viveka, that the world is impermanent. Everything is fleeting. That in that time, everything decays, right? So somewhere you will understand that it actually doesn't make any sense for me to keep on depending on the world to give me permanent things, to give me permanent solution. And therefore, the desperation for people to change, for things to change around you will slowly start coming down. So your dependency on the world starts coming down. And you become more and more independent, you become more and more self-assured. And that is what is known as Karpanya Nivritti. So you will understand that the world, everything in the world has a beginning, has an end, has conditions, and are unpredictable. You look at anything, whether it is your job, whether it is your stuffs that you have, whether it is your relationship, whether it is the health, everything has a beginning, everything has an end, and everything has a condition. There is nothing called unconditional. Everything has a condition. You deliver, you get. And plus everything is unpredictable. You really don't know what will happen to any one of it. And since things have a beginning, has an end, it has conditions, it's unpredictable, there is always certain amount of desperation, need for control, lack of freedom, helplessness. And therefore, when you move from depending on the worldly things to your essential nature, it leads to something called Karpanya Nivritti. And that is what the Upanishads promise, right? And then it is Aghata Nivritti. What is Aghata Nivritti? It is basically like a shock absorber. So for example, if you have a beautiful car, right, doesn't matter. Because the roads are bad, you will not feel good sitting inside the car. But your journey will depend upon the kind of shock absorbers you have. If the shock absorber is of a high quality, it really doesn't matter what kind of roads that you go through, isn't it? So we are all born with certain prarabdha. We are going to go through troubled times. We are going to go through good times. The point is, if we have good shock absorbers, then our life will be, it does not tell you that you will not have pleasure or pain. You will have pleasure and pain as you go along, but having a good shock absorber prevents you from going from misery to any other kind of psychological problems. And that is what Aghata Nivritti that talks about. And Dakshata Prapti again is helping you get a balanced mind, right? So these are the 5 benefits which has been clearly set out that one should get, having understood Upanishads in its truest essence, having known yourself as an Atman, having known yourself as something which is Shuddha, Buddha, Asang, Sarvagataha, whatever that you want to give yourself. Is it okay? Any questions on this?
Oh, Vedant, firstly, I think this is the crispest way of explaining this. Thank you so much for it.
Thank you, Anand.
Yeah, Vedant, thank you so much. I just had one question. When we speak about Vidyananda Prapti, right, there are many times that we experience Ananda in the form of liberation, right? We are holding on to something, and the moment we let go of that thought, or we let go of that need or that identification, there is a liberation that you feel, there is a freedom that you feel, which gives you immense pleasure, right? That is one state we experience this as. The other state is when you are in the meditation form and you are the experiencer. But apart from these two states, are there any other states as well where this can be experienced?
You're taking happiness should be experienced?
Liberation could feel like happiness, but is it also Ananda? Am I confusing them?
Okay. So the first thing when you said that when you let go, suppose you're holding to a particular thought, or you are holding to a particular idea or a relationship or a stuff, and you let go of it, you sort of feel nice, you feel light, isn't it? And that is something which is called Karpanya Nivritti, because you are no longer dependent on external thing. It kind of makes it easy for you to kind of move on. So you feel certain amount of lightness within you. Similarly, when you meditate, what happens is that your mind, which is very wobbly, comes to certain level of stability, and therefore again you experience certain kind of lightness, right?
Okay.
So when you experience certain kind of lightness, your essential nature, which is Ananda, actually shines on the quiescent mind, and that is where you experience nice. If you experience pleasant emotions, so it's not that the external object is the source of pleasant emotions. Say, for example, if it was so beautifully explained last time by one of our participants that when you go to buy an iPhone, it doesn't say that 15% happiness. When you buy an iPhone, your mind subsides, mind become calm for a moment, and therefore your essential nature, Ananda, shines on the quiescent mind. As in when you quiescent your mind, calm your mind, you will experience lightness, you will experience happiness.
So it is all boiling down to, again, silencing of the mind.
Exactly.
Okay.
And if you see, all of them finally goes to there.
Yeah.
So Upanishads do not believe necessarily in solving the problem, they believe in dissolving the problem. They say that when you are being chased by a lion in the dream, the issue is the only way that you can become better is to wake up. Not to fight the lion in the dream, it doesn't work. Similarly, to wake up to your essential nature, which is consciousness, the day you wake up to that essential nature, these are the benefits that you will accrue to.
Okay, okay, Vedant. Thank you for, going back to our teachings and again refreshing it for us.
Thank you so much. All right. So we
One more small reference that I wish to just tell here is that this Karpanya Nivritti is a little bit dealt in the chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita. After the Arjuna Vishada Yoga, that is chapter 1, very, very subtly it is dealt, Karpanya Nivritti, that is freedom from desperation, dependence, and whatever perfectly Bidhan has written. No, this is mildly dealt in Bhagavad Gita chapter 2.
I think it is put in the form of desires and wants there, right?
Yes, dependency, the dependence. So that is the Karpanya Nivritti is there in, I'm just telling that, that is why this is, I'm just trying to tell that, that's why these are called the Prakarana Granthas. These references and whatever the words we understand are there in the other Upanishads and as well as Bhagavad Gita.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Uma.
Thank you. It's very nice to get all these things in between. It makes it very nice. Yeah. All right. Now we go from Shloka 8.1 to 9.2, right? So we have covered 1 to 7. That is what are the benefits, and more importantly, what are the pre-required requirements that we need to have. Now, if you see, Tattvabodha has been written in question answer form. So point is the Shishya is asking the Guru. So it is very important for you to understand here that the Upanishads has been written with a mindset that you should always question. This is what Prema was also talking about, that you should be open, but you should always question. And that is where the strength of Upanishads come from. And that's why if you see, most of the Upanishads are written in a question answer format. The Shishya is asking the Guru and the Guru is answering the Shishya. Now, the question which is asked is what is Tattvaviveka? That's the first shloka that comes here. What is Tattvaviveka? And the answer is that, does anybody remember? It's okay, it's very difficult to remember. So what is Tattvaviveka? The answer is that Atman alone is real. All the other things are unreal. And this firm conviction is called Tattvaviveka. Knowing that I am Atman, and I'm not the body-mind complex, and I'm not, and the world is not as real as me, which is Atman. That conviction is not only knowledge at the intellectual level, but the firm conviction is called Tattvaviveka. Then the student asks the master or the Guru that, okay, you say Atman is only real, then what is Atman? Or who is Atman? That's what he asks his Guru. And the Guru, instead of directly explaining what is Atman, it first explains what is not Atman. Who is not Atman? And he says that the Sthula, Shukshma and Karana Sharira is not Atman. Right? It is different from Sthula, Sukshma and Karana Sharira. That's the first thing he says. And then he says that it is different from your personalities, which is Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanmaya, and Anandmaya. So it is not your Panchakoshas. It's not your personalities. It is not your Shariratraya. And it is the one which experiences the three states. It is the experience of your Jagrat Avastha, Swapna Avastha, and Shushupti Avastha. So very clearly the teacher says, hey, Atman is the one which is none of the Sharira. It's neither your body, nor your mind, nor your emotions, nor your intellect, nor your subconscious or unconscious. Clearly says that. It also says it is apart from your waking state experiences, dream state experiences, and deep sleep experiences. It is none of it. That's how it basically goes along. So Shloka 8.1 to 9.2 basically explains this on a very holistic. So sort of teacher has put a proper thinking. Okay, now we are going to talk about Shariratrayam, Panchakoshas, and Avasthatrayam. Is this okay? So that's what been explained in Shloka from 8.1 to 9.2. Right? Now from Shloka 10 to 12, they basically talk about what are Shariratraya? What are you saying that I am not the Shariratraya? And then there the teacher goes into detail and explains that I have three layers. The entire experience that you are having of yourself are made up of three kinds of Shariras or three kinds of matter. Sthula Sharira, Sukshma Sharira, and Karana Sharira, which is the gross body, the subtle body, and the causal body. Right? What is the gross body? So gross body is basically the physical body that you experience. It is your blood, it is your hormones, it is your brain, every internal and external organs which can be perceived by machine or five sense organs is basically called gross body, right? And this gross body is made up of Panchatattvas. But most importantly, they say that there are two reasons why this gross body is created. One, of course, is Panchatattvas, but at the same time, also because of your Adrishtaphala, because of your karma, right? Just that in science, they say that everything is made up of protein, but how the protein stacks up depends upon the DNA, isn't it? The DNA is the information that makes protein get stacked up in a particular form. Similarly, your Adrishta Phalam is the information basis which these Panch Mahabhutas come together to create this physical body. Right? So this is what it talks about the Sthula Sharira. And it basically says that Sthula Shariram is basically there in a potential state. It is born, it grows, stabilizes, it decays, and goes back into the Panchabhutas. That's what it talks about the gross body. And this is something that we all understand by now. And he's saying you're not the gross body. Then you're not the subtle body. Then what is subtle body? Which is what is the Sukshma Sharira. Sukshma Sharira is where the lot of importance is paid. Sukshma Sharira is basically the carrier which is behind this physical body. Right? It is called as Dehi in Bhagavad Gita. Someone which is residing inside the physical body and expressing itself. Right? So for example, there's a difference between your eyes and the power of seeing, ears and the power of listening. Right? So they have kind of clearly told that there are 19 aspects of your Sukshma Sharira. There are 5 basically actions, 5 organs of action, which is your speech, hand, feet, waste removal, and reproduction, right? And there are 5 organs of perception, which is hearing, touch, sight, taste, and smell, right? So 5 organs of action, 5 organs of reception or perception, and then 5 organs which kind of makes your entire body function, which is respiratory, excretory, circulatory, digestive, and reversing, right? And how does everything come together? Because there is something called 4 aspects of your mind, which is manas, buddhi, chitta, ahankara, which means that you have a emotional and logical mind, you have a decision-making, a discerning mind, you have memories, and you also have a feeling of I-ness, right? So there are these 19 aspects that expresses itself through the physical body. We're not getting into the depth of it. I'm just trying to give you an overview of what they're trying to say, right? And interestingly, each of this aspect has a devata associated with it. What does the concept of devata come here? For example, you have a power of seeing, isn't it? You have a limited power of seeing. A snail will have a smaller power of seeing, but an eagle will have a much higher power of seeing than you. So there seems to be people having, or there seems to be different grades of power of seeing. But there is something called an unlimited power of seeing. That unlimited power of seeing is called as devata, right? And it is the unlimited power of seeing from that devata. That devata for unlimited power of seeing is referred to as Surya. So Surya is representation of the aspect that in the universe exists unlimited power of seeing, and unlimited power of seeing comes to us and to different organisms. So devata, when we kind of personify Surya, what is important to understand is it represents a certain aspect of the subtle body, right? So there are, see, Indra is basically my power of holding and walking. Agni is my power of speech, and so on and so forth. Is it okay? Right? So this is so we have learned 2 things. What is Sthula Sharira? Something that can be seen and perceived by everyone. What is Sukshma Sharira? Something that can be perceived and seen only by me and not by everyone, right? Which is subtle in nature. It cannot be captured by the sense perception or by the objects or by scientific thing. It is experienced by yourself. For example, thoughts can be known only to you. It cannot be quantified through any perception machines. And then it talks about Karana Sharira. And what is Karana Sharira? Karana Sharira basically talks about that there seems to be something which exists before subtle body, and that is something called a potential body or a causal body. Something in a place where it's so very crude example of talking to you about would be is water. The water can be called as a gross body. The vapor that you see coming out of the water can be called as subtle body, and the moisture, which cannot be seen but it is present, can be talked as a potential body or the causal body. I'm giving you a very crude example, right? Just for an understanding to happen that water, vapor, and the moisture can be referred as gross body, subtle body, and the causal body. So what they're trying to say is that it is very difficult to understand what happens in the causal body because there's a state of no information, because there is no ahankara, there is no I-ness. What the subject and the object is not different. This is one. For you to know anything, there has to be a subject and there has to be object. But in a subtle body, in the causal body, there is no mind. There is no I-ness. There is no, all these sense perceptions. For you to know something, there has to be a presence of sense perception, and there has to be presence of someone which is the mind, which is kind of making sense of this sense perception. But in causal body, all of them basically becomes one dot. So there is no way you can perceive, there is no way you can understand, there is nothing that you can do, and therefore that state is called a state of avidya. They call it Moola Vidya. They call it Maya. They call it Prakriti, Avyaktam, Shakti, any name that you want to give it. And that is basically your causal body. A causal body is a state of no information, a state of where everything basically comes to that single point, right? And this is what in Shri Krishna and Bhagavad Gita says, that nothing gets created, nothing gets destroyed. It goes from Vyaktam, manifestation, to unmanifestation, which is from the gross and subtle body to causal body, and from causal body to subtle body to gross body. And this is the cycle of life. All right, so it's sort of, so this is what has been discussed in Shloka 10.1 to 12.2. That there are three bodies we are made up of: physical, subtle, causal. Is it okay? Any questions on this? You all know this? And then they say that you are none of it. You are the experiencer of these three bodies. Then they talk about that.
Yes, Vedant, I have one question.
Yes, please.
Sorry, can we go back to the previous sloka, previous one? Previous slide? Yeah. The one before this? Yeah. Okay, not this, where you had written the shariras and the different forms of the subtle body, right? The different aspects of the subtle body.
This is the one?
There, along with manaha, you had also mana, buddhi, chittam, you have written as memory, right?
Yeah.
So is this chit different from the chit that we are talking in our...
You're right. It's different.
Okay.
The chit that we kind of talk about, Sat Chit Ananda, is what you're asking about. That is different from the chit mentioned over here.
Okay, because that we see as consciousness.
Yes.
And this we are understanding as difference, but it's the same word used in two different forms.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
That is chitta and this is chittam, but maybe I would like to refer this again because that's called chitta. This is called chittam. So maybe there is a difference. We have to just look into this.
Okay.
Perfect. So now let's go to the shloka 13.1 to 13.10. And there it also talks about that you are none of the three states. This is an interesting point, that you are the experiencer of three states. So for example, right now you are in the Jagrata Avastha. What is happening in Jagrata Avastha? That your physical, your gross body, your subtle body, and causal body, all three of them are active. So you are basically absorbing all the details through your five sense organs, and it is going in your mind, and you're making sense of this entire world. That is what is happening in the Jagrata Avastha. What happens in Swapna Avastha is that your physical body stops sending information through your sense organs. So your mind basically creates a world of your own. It creates your own space, it creates your own time, it creates your own body, it creates multiple other bodies, right? So you are the experiencer of that creation of the world through mind in the Swapna Avastha. While in Jagrata Avastha, you are the experience of the world which is created with the combination of both gross body and the subtle body. And the Swapna Avastha, only subtle body is there. And what happens in Shushupti Avastha? Even the subtle body resolves. So there is nothing to know. There's absence of all knowledge. And you experience the absence of all knowledge in the deep sleep. So what the guru or the teacher is trying to tell the student is, hey, you are none of the three states. You think you are this body and mind in the waking state. That's wrong. When you are dreaming, you think you are that body and mind in the dream state. That is also wrong. You are the one which is the witness of this body and mind, that body and mind, and absence of this body and mind and that body and mind in the deep sleep state. So you are the witness consciousness. You are none of these three states, right? So not the fact that you're none of the three bodies, you're none of the three states, and that is what it talks about, right? And then it comes to say that, again from Shloka 14, is any questions on this? Now, I just hope I'm not going too fast because I want to cover this. Okay.
No questions, Vedant.
Okay. And it also says that you are not the Panchakoshas. This is something that we all understand right now, that these are all mine. This is my body, my energy, my emotions, my beliefs, my understanding, my decisions, my discrimination, right? These are mine. This is not me. So all these are your layers of personality, which changes over a period of time. Your body changes, your energy system changes, your thoughts changes, your beliefs changes, your emotions changes, your aspiration changes, your role changes. So everything changes over a period of time. You are none of this. You are the experiencer of the change. You are the experiencer of what is happening at all these 5 koshas. So this is what it talks about from Shloka 14.1 to 15. So it kind of says that, hey, see your you experience your gross body, you say it is my body. It is yours. It is not you. You experience your energy. The energy belongs to you. It's yours. It's not you. You say my emotions. But it's the biggest problem when you say I am angry. You are not angry. You experience anger. You experience sadness. You may say I am an honest person. No, that is your belief, that you experience a certain amount of belief, which changes over a period of time, right? You experience your memories, which also changes over a period of time. So these are all your personality layers, and you're not your personality layers. So net, what it is trying to tell, if you go back to what it starts with, over here is this, that what is Tattvabodha? Tattvabodha is that Atma alone is real, all things are unreal. The firm conviction is called Tattvabodha. Then the person asks, okay, if you say Atma is real, then what is Atman? The first Guru explains that what is not Atman, what is not you. So you are not your Shariratraya, you're not your gross, subtle, and causal body. You are not your 5 sheets of experiences, which is your Annamaya, Pranamaya, Manomaya, Vijnanmaya, and Anandamaya Kosha. And you are neither the waking state that you're experiencing, dream state that you're experiencing, or lack of it in the deep sleep. You are beyond that. You are none of this. That's the first thing the teacher explains. And then the teacher explains, since you are none of this, then who are you? Then the teacher comes and says, hey, you are the very consciousness, very Atman, and you are of a nature of Sat Chit Ananda. You are Sachidananda. What do you mean by this Sat Chit Ananda? And this is from Shloka 16.4 to 16.1 to 16.4. And there it talks about that you are Chit. What is Chit? Chit means you are the knower. You are the witness. Witness of what? Witness of 3 shariras that we spoke about, Shariratraya, right? You are the witness of your gross, subtle, and causal body. You are the witness of your Panchakoshas, right? You are the witness of 3 states of experience, which is Jagrat, Sushupta, and Swapnavastha. Clear? So the first thing they say that you are the witness. You are the one which is observing these 3 states. So move your attention from the observations, which is always changing, to the one which is observing. Once you move the attention, you will understand you have always been the experiencer, and you have always been thinking that you are your experiences. You are not your experiences, but the experiencer. So you are Chit. And then you are also Sat. What is Sat? Sat has 2 ways to look at it. I'm not going into a deeper manner. The easy way to say is that Sat means which is eternally present, which was present in the past, which is present in the present, and which will always be present in the future as well. So Sat is something which is beyond time, which is beyond space. And it says that I, the consciousness, I'm not the part, product, or the property of the body. I'm the invisible, independent entity that pervades the body and makes the body alive. I'm not restrained by the boundaries of the body. I'm all pervading, just like the space is all pervading. And when the body medium dies, I continue to still exist. So that is Sat. And this is very important part of one important part, which from here I just wanted to talk about Sukshma Sharira is that it survives after death as well. So it's something that I wanted to talk to you about, but it's okay. Let's come to the Sat point right now. The Sat over here is that I am eternal. I am Satyam. The other way to explain Sat is that I am the substratum. That's not something which is explained here, which will be explained later, but I'm not getting in over there right now. Right now, it is good enough for to understand that I am the observer, I am the witness, I am the experiencer, I am the subject to all that is happening. And I am not restricted by my experiences. I'm beyond my experiences. The experiences will come and go. I will still be there. The body will come and go. I still am there. The mind will come and go. I am still there. And that is what it talks about Sat. So I am in the nature of Sat and Chit. Now, what is Ananda? Ananda means that I am the nature of the very bliss, the very happiness that you experience. So what does it mean? It simply means that when you look at a sun, the sun is the source of the light, which shines on a quiescent water. When the water is wobbly, so then there is no experience of sun on the water. Just as my mind is very wobbly, it does not experience Ananda. It does not experience, because what is the medium through which you experience? It is mind. The medium is mind, isn't it? So when the mind is quiescent, you actually experience your real nature. You experience yourself through your reflection on the mind, right? If the mind is quiescent, you experience Ananda. When the mind is wobbly, you do not experience Ananda. And how do the mind become quiescent? Either it meets its desire or it tries and remains assured knowing that it does not need to depend on anything. And that's a different subject matter altogether. But right now it says that the very happiness that I experience is not because of external object, it's because of I am the source of happiness. I am the source from which the happiness shines on the quiescent mind. So therefore it says that I am the experiencer, I am beyond body and mind, and I am the source of happiness. So I am Sat Chit Ananda. So it kind of completes from 16.1 to 16.4. And this is what we have done so far. So we just kind of, on a very bird's eye view, seen what we have covered from the perspective of Tattvabodha. I think I'm done speaking. You please feel free to ask or discuss as to how do we take it.
Can you explain this Yam Neti Neti Vachanai? This last.
It's a principle that follows the Advaita Vedanta follows. It's called the Neti Neti principle.
We just
It
did
is a
that right
radical
now.
negation. I mean, if I have to give a technical word to it, it's a radical negation. That I am not this, I am not that. So just now what Vidhan explained, that to know what I am, it takes step by step of telling you are not this, you are not that, you're not the body. I mean, you're neither the Panchakoshas, you're neither the Shariratrayas, nor Avastatrayas, you are not. This is a Neti Neti principle that the Advaita Vedanta philosophy follows. It's negating elimination. I mean, as in very simple words, they say elimination is better than selection, is easier than selection. So it negates what you are not to reach to what you are, or to show what you are. Does it make sense, Vidhan?
Yeah, actually, I think in that Adi Shankara's, what is that?
Nirvana Shatakam.
Nirvana Shatakam is that.
That's how it goes. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's how it goes. Instead of
Right.
explaining to us as to what you are, they take step by step of telling you are not that and you're not this. It could be your body, it could be your, I mean, it could be your avastatrayas, it could be your shariratrayas. So it stops us from identifying ourselves with all that to bring us to what we are, to make us experience what we are.
I got it. Yeah.
Adding to what Uma said, Prema, I had actually noted down something, so maybe I'll just read that out. where it's talked about how do we describe anything, right? So when we describe anything, you can do it by name, which is nama, or by action, which is kriya, by species, which is jati, by property, which is guna, or by relation, which is sambandha. If it can't be described using the above, then it is anirvachya, right? And so the definitions which we normally see is either defined based on some properties or some relation, or finally it is based on negation. So when nothing, you can't describe it by any other thing, then you have to do it by negation. So just I thought it was interesting, and I'll just add on to what Uma said.
This is
Thank you.
beautiful. This is beautiful, Asha and Uma, what you have covered. And see, the point is when we say consciousness is Sat, Chit, and Ananda, we are trying to use words to explain it. It is not possible. So again, when we are saying Chit, we are trying to say it in negation of what is not sentient. So we are saying it is sentient, right? So again, we are saying something which is not permanent, it is permanent. So again, it is neti neti only. So the consciousness, my real essential nature cannot be described in words, but we are still trying to use words to describe ourselves by negating what is already there. If you go in a deeper, if we start getting into very deeper manner, then that is why you will understand why Buddha said that there is nothingness. Because it cannot be explained, it cannot be defined. But it does not mean that there is nothingness. There is something which cannot be defined, which is beyond your definition of words, grasp of your mind, beyond language, right? So my essential nature is beyond that. But we are still trying to use language to make some sense of it, rather than just saying it cannot be perceived, it cannot be spoken, so let's not speak about it. So today we have more or less looked at what we have learned so far. What I was thinking, tell me if this makes sense with the group. In the next session, we will try and make sense and see how does it apply, how does it work for us in day-to-day lives. So we can put our next session only on that, and after having done that, then we move into the next level of understanding where they will talk about universe. Right now, they have only spoken about two things. What are the basic qualifications you need? And they have explained, I am made up of combination of Atma and Anatma. I am not my experience. I mean, three states of experiences. I am not my Shariratrayam or Panchakoshas. I am the Atman, and I am Sat Chit Ananda. So it's sort of explained now. Now it will move into a little bit more. It will get into universe. What is universe? So before understanding universe, we have to understand this because universe is a little bit more complicated. Right?
No, I think that's a good suggestion, Abhidan. Looking at how this whole learning and experience has helped us, or if there are gaps, we can learn from each other. I think that will be a wonderful session to have next.
What I will also do is I will try and convert this into PDF and send this presentation to all of you so that you can have it at your disposal and see through it, understand in terms of, okay, take your time, please take time this time, each one of us over here to go through this and think for yourself in terms of what makes sense, what doesn't make sense, what is helping, what is not helping. Is that okay?
Yep.
All right. Any thoughts before we kind of conclude the session today?
Thoughts, Vedant. Thank you for helping us recollect everything so beautifully. It consolidates all our learning in our mind as well, right? I just wanted to put forward one of my understanding. One of the most difficult things that I found to understand throughout was the causal body, right? Because so it is so difficult to explain or to understand and so abstract as well. So when I was going through something and reading things about that, one of the things that I found most helpful, I thought I will share, which, if there are people like me here at all, then it may be helpful for them also. I know many of them are in most advanced stages, but for some beginner like me, maybe it'll help. Is that okay? Do we have 5 minutes?
Yes, of course. Please go.
Absolutely.
Okay. So, what I understood by going through that reading and the video was that the name causal body itself suggests that it is the cause for your subtle and your gross body, right? So, when I was looking for examples, okay, how do I understand this further? This is very vague. This is very vague, right? So, then it is like there is a universal memory, and that memory contains a lot of potential. And this you can also understand through the worldly experiences. For example, if you see your yugas in the Satya Yuga, you are in the most purest form and very close to this Satchitananda part for yourself, right? Where you are very good at your health and you are very righteous, spiritual wisdom is great, there is lot of ethical conduct, and you have a lot of greatness in your subtle body and your gross body, right? Then you generate your actions, which causes karma and causes memory, which again goes into your causal body, right? So from there it comes to the Treta Yuga. So the people are experiencing the um, results of what has happened there from Treta Yuga, right? So you see again drop in uh, all the righteousness or the ethical wisdom, and then there is a bit of peace and harmony, but you see that there is some result happening, which we talk about the causal body, right? So that memory is somewhere playing out. So when I was looking at these yugas, the more you go to Dwapara Yuga, there is more deceit, there is more cheating, and then come to Kali Yuga, you can speak of all kinds of violence. So somewhere I felt you can see the result of your karmas, you can see the causal body playing out in action over here, right? Whether it is with respect to your gross body or your subtle body. So that kind of consolidated the learning for me in a much more stronger form in the worldly nature, right? So I just thought I will share that, but I don't know how helpful it is for others.
It's just beautiful, Uma. I mean, you actually transcended us to all the yugas so easily, actually. So seamlessly, I mean, and one more, my personal thing take about this is it's like, okay, fine. I mean, it's not only this thing that is the issue. It has been carried over yoga, so I can be a little lighter.
Yeah, because we are trying to understand within our lifetime, right? And it's making it very challenging to understand it that way. Okay, how does the causal body work within my lifetime and how do I understand it? But if I go back and see through the phase of our history, then somewhere we can understand there is some power acting there, something happening which makes more sense in the decline of many, many things. So that was interesting for me, at least.
That's very interesting, Uma. Thank you so much for bringing this up. So since you brought it up, let me just quickly close the loop here. What Swami Sarvapriyananda clearly says that what is stored in your causal body is your karmic impressions. Right? So all the karma that you do, the karmic impression, which is called vasanas, which is called samskaras, right? That is the seed which leads to your subtle body and your physical body. So all the karma that you do, the information, the vasana is basically stored in your causal body. And that continues. And that is the seed which now becomes your subtle and your physical body. So thank you so much for bringing this out. So you were talking from a very universal concept. I mean, it was very nicely brought out here. So this works at the very at our concept also. In science, you can look at there is a separate thing. There's a conscious, subconscious, and the unconscious, right? So I was talking to another doctor, and he was trying to explain me this when I've gone on a trip with them from a Vedantic perspective, that what is conscious, subconscious, and the unconscious. The unconscious piece can be called as a causal body, where a lot of information gets stored, which is not accessible to us right now. Perfect. Thank you so much, Uma.
Thank you, Vedant.
How do we map the concept of genetics here?
Okay, so we have to basically superimpose the concept. There is no way we can credibly answer you this, but it is like this, that if you have gone through a certain karmic patterns and there is a certain karma a certain prarabdha that you need to burn in this lifetime. So that you as the Sukshma Sharira or a you would basically choose a certain genetic disposition that allows you to burn your prarabdha for this lifetime. Right. So that's how it sort of explains.
Yeah, but genetics has its own thing, like,
That's why I'm
the
saying it has
factor.
to be superimposed. It cannot be clearly answered. It's the way it is said is that when you are born, depending upon your star alignments, it can be clearly stated that what sort of a life cycle you will go through. It does not mean what kind of a life you will have, what kind of a life cycle you will go through, what kind of systems, what kind of ups and downs you will go through. There's a difference between what kind of a life you have, because if you're very conscious, the life cycle doesn't matter. But if you're not very conscious, life cycle matters a lot. So similarly, what kind of nakshatra you are born in is dependent upon your karmic patterns, right? So again, this knowledge is generally superimposed that what kind of a genetics you kind of take depends upon your karmic patterns. But is there a evidence to prove that? The answer is no. Is that okay? You can't answer that, Prema. We're going to just speculate here. That's all. I created a hypothesis and hope, and there's no way we can figure this out. But it could be certainly figured out from a perspective of nakshatra and your purvajanma karmas. Any questions?
Karmic impressions, yes, it's convincing. Yeah, but that border where it meets science always gets blurred. It's tough to re resolve this.
Prema, the way I think about it, and for me, I also keep trying to fit all these pieces together. And the way I think about it is very similar to, I think, what Pidan was also trying to say is it's not like the genetics don't exist, but the very reason that you are born into that family, right? So the moment you are born into that family, the remaining thing falls into place, right? All the scientific, genetic things that you inherit from your parents, all of that falls into place. But the reason why you are born in that family in the first place, that is driven by your prarabdha karma. So this is the cause, and the effect is that you are born into that family, and then the whole genetics thing makes sense, right? So that's how
Agree.
I've been able to put those two together.
I was just thinking of that example of Arun Yogiraj. I mean, it probably is once in a lifetime or once in many lifetimes, somebody's experience. And to think that the very first meeting, which was called for all these sculptures, potential sculptures, his name was not even there in that. So there is something that I think beyond all this.
Couple of classes back, or maybe in our first course or second one, when Bidan had stated a point which actually kind of summarizes what Asha said. The unmanifested Namarupa is the cause. The manifested Namarupa is the effect.
So great. Thank you, Prema, for asking this. And please do bring out all these questions when we're going to meet next. It's nice to have these kind of questions and debates to look at it. So we'll go ahead and do a prayer. Soma, would you just want to do this?
Om Sarvesham Swastirbhavatu Sarvesham Shantirbhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam भवतु। ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामया। ॐ सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Vedant.
Thank you,
Thank you.
everyone.
So,
Thank you,
The
Vedant.
agenda for the next week.
I'll
Right.
send the presentation and let's see where it practically makes sense and how do we go about using this in a day-to-day.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.